All right, that's a reaction from the lawyers who were standing by for Miguna Miguna following a declaration by the court there that his deportation is null and void and therefore his passport needs to be deposited in the court within 7 days from today. Otiende Amolo there, who is one of the lawyers and also the Rarieda Member of Parliament, was saying that this is a lesson to all the public servants in office that the judiciary is independent and no one can break the law. We'll be following all those developments for you, but what we know right now is that Justice Luka Kimaru has declared the deportation of Miguna Miguna, which happened on last week, I believe, that it's null and void and therefore his passport needs to be deposited in court within 7 days. And speaking right after that was James Orengo, who also mentioned that this shows that the judiciary is still one of the most independent institutions we have in the country. And also Otiende Amolo there mentioned that the supremacy of the constitution has been upheld. He also mentioned that the independence of the judiciary is now unquestionable following that ruling. But there's also another lawyer there called Harun Dubi, who's appearing on behalf of the LSK, who's now calling for the declaration of the DCI boss, that's George Kinoti, and also the IG of police, Joseph Boinnet, to be declared unfit for office, because according to him, they had been summoned earlier on to appear in court. In fact, we'll be getting in touch with Victoria Rubadiri, who's there on the ground to speak to us about it, because Justice Luka Kimaru had mentioned that IG Boinnet and DCI boss George Kinoti should appear in person in court to explain the circumstances under which Miguna Miguna was deported to Canada, and also with sworn affidavits saying why disciplinary action, in fact the words the Justice Luka Kimaru used was why they should not be punished for disobeying court orders. Speaking of disobedience of court orders, in the next few minutes from now, lawyers are expected to protest and march from the Milimani courts to the CBD and the Supreme Court, essentially to declare their stand against what they call is disobedience of court orders. We've seen several of them having been issued. In fact, one of them that was supposed to be executed this morning was the appearance of the DCI boss and also the IG police chief, that's Boinnet, to appear in person before the judge, but seemingly they did not. We're going to get information from Victoria whether they did or sent representatives or not. But the main issue that is coming out of the courts this morning is that the deportation of Miguna Miguna has been declared null and void. His passport should be deposited in court within 7 days. Whether that happens or not is a question that we will be following up for you to see if it actually happens. Harun Dubi, the lawyer, was calling for the DCI boss and IG Boinnet to be declared unfit for office for what he terms as disobedience of court orders, and also they had been summoned to appear there in person to speak to the judge and explain the circumstances under which Miguna Miguna was deported to Canada, which was not explained too well. However, during that time, during the deportation of Miguna Miguna to Canada, there was an explanation that the Ministry of Immigration was doing separate investigations on Miguna, and therefore they had released him as the court had ordered with a 50,000 bail. However, the Ministry of Immigration seized him almost immediately and deported him because, according to them, he had renounced his Kenyan citizenship. Miguna, on the other hand, said he had not done such a thing at any given point, and he was mentioning the constitution, which states that a Kenyan by birth cannot really lose his citizenship even if he acquires the citizenship of another country. However, that is in the constitution of 2010. The argument for the government was that prior to that, you were able to actually renounce your citizenship. Whether that holds water or not is a matter of legal perception, depending on who is speaking and which side you're standing on. But as it stands right now, Miguna Miguna is essentially free to come back to the country after the court overturned his deportation. Victoria Rubadiri has been following those events for us live in Milimani, and she joins me there now. Vicky, did the DCI boss and IG send representatives, or what happened there?
That's right, Trevor. We just finished up the ruling from Justice Kimaru, basically saying that the DCI, George Kinoti, and the IG of police, Joseph Boinnet, do have an opportunity to purge the contempt of court charge against them. He did say the declaration being made by the Cabinet Secretary for Interior, Fred Matiang'i, revoking the citizenship of Miguna Miguna is null and void, as it came after he made his ruling on February 6th. He also did ask for written submissions from the IG of police and the DCI, saying that they would indeed comply with the ruling that he did give today. He also requested for the status quo to be returned back to February 2nd. That was the day that Miguna Miguna was in fact arrested, and also asked for the passport, the valid Kenyan passport of Miguna Miguna, to be surrendered to the court within 7 7 days. We also heard from the legal counsel led by James Orengo, the senator, saying that this, of course, is victory for them. This is further asserting the authority of the judiciary. Of course, this has been called into question over the last couple of days, as we've seen several court orders being defied by the government, and this case particularly by the IG and the DCI when it came to producing Miguna Miguna in court. That they failed to do, and instead he was deported to Canada. So this, of course, opening up the way for Miguna Miguna to come back into the country. It is yet to be seen, however, whether it will be honored, whether his passport will be produced in court. We do also understand from Justice Kimaru earlier that he called into question a culpability on the part of the Director of Immigration, who said that because he was not party to the proceedings of this case, he was not liable. And he also said that he was not aware since he was not served on part of this case. However, Justice Kimaru found that he did work in collusion with the IG and the DCI to ensure that Miguna Miguna was in fact deported from the country. But over the next 7 days, we'll see whether that the IG of police and the DCI do comply with this court order, and whether in fact the passport of Miguna Miguna will be produced in court. That will now pave way for him to return to the country. Trevor.
Vicky, one of the other things that's coming up is that the DCI boss himself and the IG were supposed to appear in court in person. Did they do that? And what did the judge say about it?
I'm sorry, Trevor, can you repeat the question again? I didn't get that.
Yeah, Justice Luka Kimaru had ordered the DCI boss and the IG of police, Joseph Boinnet, to appear in person in court. Did they show up, and did they give an explanation if they did not? And what did the judge say about it? Vicky, I'll say that. I'll ask that one more time. Did the police boss appear in person in court?
Yeah, Trevor, we did not have the physical presence of the DCI, George Kinoti, or the Inspector General of Police, Joseph Boinnet, in court today. Of course, that was a requirement today, and that is why we heard Justice Kimaru saying that he will give them opportunity to purge the contempt of court because they did not appear today. There was no reasoning given as to why they did not make themselves present in the courtroom. The last time they did not show up, they said they were in a very crucial national security meeting, hence why they weren't able to present themselves. They did instead give affidavits explaining their positions as to why they did not produce Miguna Miguna in court. However, Justice Kimaru has since said those would not be fitting in terms of explanations. He has now said that they, of course, as I said earlier, do have the opportunity to purge the contempt of court charges against them by giving written statements that they will comply with his ruling today, that indeed they must supply the passport of Miguna Miguna. However, they have not explained why, and none of the counsel representing them explained why they were not able to show up in court